Sound, Mind, and Body is brought to you in part by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/inbound. You'll find over 180,000 titles to choose from and to listen to through your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Support Sound, Mind, and Body by visiting audibletrial.com/inbound.
Hello and welcome to Sound, Mind, and Body, a podcast where we talk about how to stay healthy, balanced, and well of mind, body, and spirit in today's crazy world with a dash of woo-woo. Today, my guest is another very special person that I met through my strength training studio because she came in and has been a client for probably going on 5 years now. She is an extraordinary woman. She's been a film producer for the past 20 years. Before that, she has done a myriad of things in the entertainment business, including she was a career coach and created a film school that focused on marketing yourself in the industry. It was called Flash Forward. She did that for about 12 years. And before she even got into the film business, she was the first female VP for a TV station and network in Canada. So welcome, Suzanne Lyons.
Well, thank you. When you list all that stuff, it makes me sound so old, but just so you know, some of it did overlap. The film school because otherwise I'd be well 90, which not that there's anything wrong with that.
You have accomplished so much in your life so far, in your very short life. So Suzanne, we have so much to talk about because you have an extraordinary life, and we've talked about many of these things as, you know, when you come in to do your training sessions, and all I can say is that when you come in, I am uplifted. I am always uplifted when you come in. And when you're gone for periods of time, I'm like, where's my Suzanne? I need my fix. I need my fix. So let's first I want to talk about, because you're just such a fun and you're one of the most positive people I've ever met in my life.
Wow, thank you.
And let's talk about something that happened to you when you were about 11 years old. And I feel like this might have set the tone for your whole life. So when you were 11 years old, you grew up in an area in a very small town in New Brunswick, Canada, and you were diagnosed with a cancer, correct? So tell us that story.
Okay, I'll tell a little bit about that. And the problem is I do tend to tell long stories, so I'll try to keep it short.
Okay.
I started with the tumor when I was really little.
And what kind of tumor? Where was it?
It was in the muscle behind the eye. I don't know what it was called. It was very rare kind of tumor.
Okay.
But it wasn't malignant at the time, so they would just keep taking it out. And my family told me it was a little tree that grew in the muscle behind the eye, which I bought the story. It's like something fine to me. It's like I grew up in the forest, pretty much, in the country. I thought, okay, fine, whatever. And so, but when I was in puberty, which happens sometimes when you've got benign tumors or whatever, it turned from benign to malignant.
Okay.
So the doctor had said to my mom, called my mom. She had just had her ninth baby, my brother Andrew.
Oh my goodness,
She was actually in the hospital when I was in the hospital. She was having the baby. When he called my mom and said, Mrs. Lyons, he said, I want you to come down. I want you to bring Joe. He'd never asked for my dad to come down to St. John before, ever. So she knew immediately, of course.
Serious.
Even though he didn't say anything, yeah. But I was excited because every time I went to St. John, I got to see my cousin Mary Lee, and I got to stay for a little while with her family, and they had store-bought cookies, which was a very big deal. That's all I can remember is the store-bought cookies.
Oh my gosh!
And then my mom and dad or whoever was with us, we always went to the like a department store because they had a department store there in the city, and had a sundae or a banana split. So that was my focus: is we're going to have store-bought cookies, and I'm going to get to have a sundae or a banana split. I had a choice.
Oh my god!
I know, it was like so cool. So when I'm sitting in the doctor's office, and that's all I'm thinking of, and we're going to go pick up Mary Lee at school, and we're going to go in the get a sundae or a banana split. Which one am I going to do? And my mom and dad walked out of that doctor's office with the biggest smiles on their face.
You're kidding.
No. And I'm thinking, can you imagine? And at the time, when you're in puberty and having a cancer that I had, which was very rare, there was only 2 other people in Canada before me with that particular kind, they gave me 3 to 6 months.
Oh,
so that's what they had just been told.
What?
And they came out of the office, and my dad said, okay, what's it going to be, a banana split or a sundae? Let's go get Mary Lee. And that was the attitude. And Mom was like, yeah, wow, I can't wait. And guess what? And I said, what? She said, we're going to Montreal, which was the bigger hospital. And that was 600 miles away.
God.
And I said, Montreal. And she said, yes, and we're going to go on a train. Nobody in my family had been on a train. That was like a major big deal. And I thought, oh, my God, this is so cool. I can't wait to tell Mary Lee. So anyway, so we did. So it was just so fun. And then they called the Red Cross and the Blue Cross and various churches in our neighborhood. And everybody kind of got together to get the money for my mom and I to go on the train, which I was thrilled about.
You were just like, I'm so special, and this is wonderful.
Oh, my God. I was so special, so special. And we got to play bingo on the train. It was an overnight train. You got to go to sleep. It was back when trains were...
like sleeper trains.
Beautiful trains with the white tablecloths on the, in the dining rooms. And the people that were on the train serving were all dressed up. And it was quite something. It was 1966, I apologize. And... don't do the math, please. Jesus. Sorry, I just said. Yeah, I know you're. Yes, let me add that up. So yes, I loved it. Honestly, I lived there for 7 months. They never used the word cancer. It was never used.
Really?
No. So I still thought, oh, that little tree's back, and it's just growing a little more rapidly, that's all. But when you're in puberty, your cells grow very quickly. Very quickly. So that's why they were saying that the time was so limited. So the doctors kept saying you had to sign before your child could go to the OR. So, and they said, well, what's her chances? And it was kind of like a 90-10 that it wasn't going to work.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
Oh
so my
gosh.
mom said, I'm sorry. I'm not signing. And this was a woman who had really never been out of our little area before, who had just had her 9th baby, a month and a half or 2 months before. And so she was a pretty strong woman to then say, I'm not signing.
Really?
I'm not going with 90-10. So she just did some research. She went through the hospital up there, and she came to a floor of radiology, and she asked them, and they said, well, we don't know. It's a very rare cancer, and we don't know. And, it could be a 50-50. She said, 50-50 is better than 90-10.
That's true.
Yeah. So she said, sign me up. And I had just turned 12. And so I was enjoying it tremendously.
Oh, my gosh.
And they treated you like an adult. Like the minute I got there, the nurses were very serious with me. Well, Suzanne, when you get up in the morning, you're going to join me here. We're going to make so many beds. I can do hospital corners on your sheets like nobody else. I swear to God. I know how to do pillows. So I made beds every day. Then at the break time, I'd have to go and feed the babies.
Really?
It's no wonder I've never had children, right? Jesus. So then I would, and then when the parents left after the visiting time in the afternoon, back then it was just 2 hours, I would have to go and, rock the babies to sleep. But those were jobs.
So you were there in the hospital being treated, and you were also participating in helping take care of the younger children.
Well, your treatment was only 3 minutes and 12 seconds a day, so I thought I had a job.
Oh, my God.
I thought I was there, even though I wasn't getting paid, but I thought I had a job. And for 7 months, I had one moment of homesickness. And that's when, with radiation, after about a week after your first radiation, because back then it was called cobalt. We're talking intense stuff here.
God, yeah, really.
Oh, my God. And not that it hurt or anything. And so I remember throwing up, and I thought, I've got the flu. And when you have the flu as a little kid, you want your mummy.
Yeah.
Right? So I remember crying and saying to the nurses, I want my mom. So they made a call through the hospital.
Which was a big deal.
A very big deal. Yeah. God, probably cost $100 back then. And so I just called and cried, I'm throwing up and I must have the flu. Yes, it's the flu. And then all this stuff, right? And that was it. And that was the last time I was ever homesick at all. I fell in love with my doctor, right? And because of the white coat, and he was very handsome, an older man, and I got to spend Christmas Day with him and his wife and his son, who I think was in medical school at the time.
Then at what point did the doctor say, oh, this is working? I mean, she's going to be okay.
Yeah, I mean, then they gave me a break after I finished 3 months worth or whatever, and then I had a week off, which, didn't feel too good about. I went home for a few days, and I remember having a headache. And then I remember, because the doctor said, if it does move into the bone, that is it. There is nothing, we can do. And I remember the one day when it just slightly moved into the bone, because I remember screaming. And I remember Mom must have been downstairs, and what was she was thinking? God knows.
Yeah, right.
And I remember just screaming and screaming, thinking, my God, this is such a bad headache. I have a bad headache. I need an aspirin.
Oh, no.
But then we went back up to Montreal a couple of days later and then into the surgery. And I remember Dr. Nichols coming in the night before, and he was upset. He was very upset.
Really?
And he was like, and I remember, and he wasn't kind of telling me that things could go badly, but he was so upset. Ugh. And I remember patting him on the back. This is like a 12-year-old.
You're like comforting him.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh
he was sitting on my bed, and I'm thinking, Dr. Nichols, it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay, and all this stuff.
Oh my gosh!
Because I didn't know what the big fuss was about.
Because you didn't realize that it was so desperate, and so you were never given that indication.
Nobody said anything negative. I just was having a great time.
Wow.
And I was in puberty, and don't forget there were boys in the hospital, right? Many boys, some of whom were in traction, who couldn't run away, right? So my roommate and I would go and practice kissing them at night, and they.
Oh my God!
Oh yeah,
you're kidding?
No, I'm not. Like at midnight. So I mean, I'm having a good time.
You were having the fantastic time.
Let's just say fantastic. Yeah. So.
My God.
Yeah. So what happened the morning of, when I get back I'm in the recovery room now, it's like an 8-hour surgery.
So they did ultimately do surgery.
They went in and they took everything out, but now they were able to go in and scoop it all out. And they did scrape a little bit off the bone up here. And Dr. Nichols, he came out, and Mom was by the recovery room by the elevator. And Dr. Nichols came out, and he had his head down, and she said, "What is it?" And he said, "I just want to tell you, Mrs. Lyons, if we hadn't listened to you last fall, Susie wouldn't be with us today."
Oh my gosh.
And she patted him on the back, and she said, "Dr. Nichols, don't worry. Let's just chalk it up to Mother's intuition."
Oh, wow. Yeah. So you survived. This is making me cry.
Yeah, it's a while back. Yeah.
And so, I feel like that set the tone for you. You don't seem to have a problem. It's like there's problems always, you can always pivot yourself into a better attitude about anything.
Yeah.
And that's set the tone for your life, how you experience your life.
Yeah, because all those surgeries early on, I had 16 by the time that happened. 16, but it was always about kind of the adventure of it all and going to the hospital. And who knows if it had been a hospital at home, but I always got to go and, see my cousin and have that drive to St. John. And it was just fun. I think I am a master pivoter, but I didn't even know I was pivoting. I didn't even know I was turning a situation from one way to another. I didn't even know I was kind of altering my gaze, so to speak.
Your gaze of life.
Of life in a different way.
It reminds me of that movie. Is it called Life is Beautiful? Is that the one where the Italian movie?
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where the little boy was in the concentration camp with and then his dad pretended it was all a big game.
Yeah.
And he didn't know the entire time. It was just beautiful. It was the same. It reminds me of that story.
Yeah, exactly. And I wonder if my mom and dad had responded differently, if they'd come out crying, if I knew them, would that have affected things? I don't know.
Absolutely.
But I really didn't know. I thought it was all a game. Wow. And I do think life is a game. And we're here to have fun. And we're here to be joyful. And I've never thought anything other than that, really.
Wow.
Ever, even when I was very little. But I came from a big family, a big Irish Catholic family, where Christmas morning you could barely get in the living room because the presents, we all got each other presents and Santa proper, and we had nothing. My dad had grade 4 education. He paved, the roads in the summer he worked for the government garage, in our little community, and was a snow plow, not even the driver of the snow plow, but, he was the other guy on the snow plow in the winter. And, I remember when I was a secretary, it was my first job to pay for my first year of school, and he made $4,000, and that was in 1973. And that was because I remember I made $4,200 that year as a secretary to pay for my first year. And I remember thinking, wow, I made more than my dad.
Oh, my
goodness. Like 18 or 19. I was 19. So.
Wow. So we're going to take a break right now. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about your professional career and some amazing things that you've accomplished there too.
Okay.
next week on Sound Mind and Body. Lisa May from KLOS joins us once again as we speak with Adam Gilbert, the founder of a daily and personal accountability weight loss program called My Body Tutor.
The first reason why you can't stick with a diet is the diet and exercise plan you're trying to follow is not sustainable to begin with. You can only follow a cookie diet or a shake diet or a grapefruit diet or a no fun diet for so long. It has to be sustainable, it has to be practical, and it has to be healthy. Number two is that most people go on what I call a food diet. Essentially, they go from one diet to the next, and the only thing they're changing is the food they're eating.
Yeah.
And if the only thing you're changing is the food you're eating, you're not going to change for the long term. It's critical that you change your relationship with food, that you change your habits and behaviors around food, that you change the way you think and react to food. So that's a big part of what we focus on. Because if you're just changing the food you're eating, you're not changing what's going on between your ears, and that's the key to long-term success.
That's next week on Sound Mind and Body.
Hey, it's Tim Edwards with the Inbound Podcasting Network and producer of Sound, Mind, and Body. Just the fact that you're listening to the Sound, Mind, and Body podcast tells us that you enjoy consuming your content through your ears. Now, if you're a podcast listener, you're a perfect fit to enjoy audiobooks. So for you, our listeners and official members of Sheila's woo-woo community, Audible is offering you a free audiobook download and a free 30-day trial to check out their awesome service. Look, I'll be honest, I hate reading, always have. I'm a very slow reader, and I don't have the time to just sit down and read a book. So, like you, I've always loved consuming my content through listening. I've been an Audible customer for several years, and as a result, on average, consume about 20 to 25 books a year. In other podcasts the Inbound Podcasting Network produces, we've interviewed authors like Dr. Martin Gabala, who penned The 1 Minute Workout, and Dr. Sylvia Tara, who wrote The Secret Life of Fat. Both are very informative for those who are looking to get in shape and to stay in shape, and both are available with Audible. Give it a shot. You've got nothing to lose. It's absolutely free for 30 days, and you get a free audiobook to keep even if you don't continue with the subscription. Support Sound, Mind, and Body by visiting audibletrial.com/inbound. That's audibletrial.com/inbound. We'll include a link in the show notes, or just click the Audible banner at soundmindbodypodcast.com.
So we're back. We're talking to Suzanne Lyons, who is a film producer for almost 20 years, but she has some very interesting beginnings in her professional life. One is she was one of the first female VPs in Eastern Canada for a TV station and network. So just briefly, tell me a couple things that happened being one of the first females in that industry.
Yeah, well, first of all, I was 29, so that was a little bit difficult. It was the mid-'80s, which when you think of the 80s, or when I do, you think, well, my God, we've already gone through the 60s. You know, we've done the whole, the revolution had happened. Or,
we've already done this.
Women's lib. It's like, come on, maybe in Canada, you know, Eastern Canada might have happened a little more slowly, maybe by the 70s, but come on, it's the mid-'80s, right?
Yeah.
So I was in the TV station and had this opportunity to be in management like that, and I thought, oh, I'm going to run for it, and how exciting. It never occurred to me that there was an issue, right?
Right.
Nothing occurred to me as an issue in life.
Yes, ever.
Yeah. So it's my first day, so I'm all excited. So I run upstairs to kind of, you know, kind of meet the boss, even though I kind of knew him a tiny bit. I'd been there for a while, obviously. And I just said I just wanted to have a little chat. And Mr. Nathanson, and, you know, kind of so excited today and, you know, to be part of this team and the management team. And he said, listen, I just want to tell you one thing. You're a woman, so therefore you're stupid. And you belong in a kitchen. Obviously, I'd never tasted my cooking. Jesus. I don't know if I'd ever been in the kitchen, actually. And so I will do everything in my power to put you there.
Oh, my God.
But here's the thing.
Whoa.
Yeah, I'm so adorable.
You are. You are.
I can't help, but it's like I'm just nice. You know, I was
and
brought
you're
up,
just like, I'm not going to take that for, I'm just like
I
Pollyanna,
really,
right?
Yeah, I couldn't process it. So because I'm thinking, is the person joking? Like I couldn't quite process it because I was brought up to be nice. And even my mom, you know, you're nice. Don't get your dress dirty. Little girls don't laugh too loudly. They don't speak too loudly. And be nice. Right. And I was nice. I was damn nice. Right?
He didn't care.
No, the problem was maybe it wasn't all about being nice, right?
Yeah,
all of a sudden now you're in a management position. You've got a team of people that are now you're accountable for. These, I had to look all these directors, and I was the director. So I mean, they were kind of producing all the various promotions, and I was looking after 3 different stations, not to mention the network, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember walking down the stairs going, I don't understand. And then
is that a joke?
Yeah. So then I started to cry. So I went in the bathroom and I cried for about 2 hours. And then I kind of, made it to my office and called my sister.
Yeah.
I was with the Privy Council office at the time, which is kind of like the Pentagon here, right?
Uh-huh.
And I said, I need to speak to my sister. And they said, well, the country's in a little bit of crisis. She's with the prime minister, but there's a little bit of an issue going on right now. I said, crisis? Girlfriend, you don't know crisis. You get my sister on the phone. So she did. Of course, Deb thought somebody died, right?
Yeah.
So she got on the phone, and so we were chatting, and anyway, so I literally went home and put the covers over my head for a day until I'd processed, and then I went back, and then my one of the guys, I had a guy we were best friends the day before, I was his boss, and he came in and he said, I've never worked for a woman before. I don't intend to start now. So he threw the work at me, and
oh my God,
and it's like, and all the men who were now my bosses the day before, who were now my peers,
yeah,
they kind of made a pact to not talk to me, and so it was very scary, yeah. And this went on for kind of months, and I didn't know how to process. And luckily, my doctor set me up with an assertiveness training program that was happening out just across the river from Halifax in Dartmouth, and then he also told me about a stress management clinic that I went to, and that helped a lot with kind of the cognitive thinking of, I have to switch paradigms here. It's like I've got to kind of stand in a different place. But what I found interesting was that it continued. Like in the board meeting, he'd go around and he'd say, okay, Andy, what's going on in your department today? Or Ken, what's going on in electrical today? Or what's going on in news? And then he'd come to me, well, Suzanne, obviously yours isn't important. So next, Jim, what's going on?
Oh, my God.
Yeah. It was just, constant kind of abuse for a fairly long time.
But you didn't stop.
Yeah. First of all, I kept getting, advice from people. And somebody would say, well, you should sue. That's kind of, abuse. And somebody else said, well, you should learn to manipulate. And every time somebody gave me advice, as vulnerable and terrified as I was, that I'd been found out that I really wasn't capable or whatever, right? We all kind of have those moments. As scared as I was, I knew it wasn't about make wrong. I knew it wasn't about make wrong. It wasn't like me getting back at him. You know what I mean? Or them or whatever. Yeah. It was like something's off here.
Yeah.
And it's not about making somebody else wrong, because that's not a win-win. And I knew in my gut that was the situation. But then at the same time, you do go around collecting evidence for why you're right. That's kind of one of the things we do. It's, Sheila, did he say something to you, or did Andy? Yeah, well, there. So when you kind of put that little bit of evidence in your basket, I kept the basket on my shoulder, collecting evidence, right? For why
I have some of those baskets.
Mine are getting quite heavy, but yeah, exactly. So we kind of collect that evidence. And then eventually, thank God, I ended up, my sister called, and a bunch of them, especially the MPs in Ottawa, and a bunch of the Privy Council office, they did this program called the Forum. So she said, I think this might help with, they kind of did the business element of it. So I did. I went up right away, like a week later, and dealt with the whole thing. And then it was really interesting, because the more I worked with my communications course leader and forum leader on the whole thing, the more I realized that where the issue was over here with me.
With you.
It's always over here.
Okay.
It's never, ever, ever, ever over there.
So how did you resolve that? I mean, most people listening would probably be like, oh my God, that was ridiculous. He shouldn't have done that to you. And especially in this climate right now. Yeah. So how was that over with you? How did you take that responsibility and change the situation?
Well, yeah, I went back, and usually when I'd walk up, those 3 flights of stairs and go and sit in his office and in a chair, by the time I sat in that big chair, I'd feel like a little pea, and I'd go to speak, and my little voice would be all constricted, and a little squeak would come out,
Yeah.
But this day I got back, and I think it was up in Ottawa, the class, and I came back and I walked up the steps, and I felt 100% confidence, and I got to his office door, and I feel really good.
Yeah.
And I went in and I sat in that big chair, and I felt like I fit in that big chair.
Right.
For the first time. And I realized he had just gotten back from vacation. I think he was visiting his son or whatever. And so I said, I heard you and your wife got back from vacation. How was it? Like, I just thought, I'm just
Instead of being like, ooh, I'm scared of him.
Yeah, I just thought he's just a human being just like me. There's 7 billion of us on the planet, probably 5 billion at that time, and we're all scared of each other. I got that, you know? So I just want to have a conversation.
Right.
So we talked for an hour about vacation and about India, and then we got into, I think, foods and all kinds of things. And then I kind of had sufficient relationship built at that point. And that's when I said to him, what happened last year, like 8 months ago, when I started? I said, what was that all about? I said, you told me, I'd been locked in the kitchen and then kind of this harassment throughout the year. What was that all about? But I didn't say it as a way of make wrong. I just said, I just want to understand what happened, given obviously now we're being,
friendly and we're working together. Yeah.
What was that about? Just so I can understand. And he said, Suzanne, I'm 65 years old. He said, this used to be not my network. Now it's an affiliate. I'm working here. I'm getting close to retirement. I've never worked with a woman before. I don't know how.
And you're young.
And you're young. Yeah, I was 29. And he said, I just want to get out. He said, I don't know how to deal with you. I'm so scared of you.
Wow.
And he said, and then I said, well, are you scared of all of us? And he said, kind of, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
And I said, well, I just did this great course. I said, called the forum. And I said, I got a few little tips. I think I can help you. Because he never came downstairs, hardly.
Oh, my gosh.
And so we started working together a little bit on this. And he would come down and meet people and shake hands and kind of get to know people. And it's funny because about a year later, when I was leaving, we were moving to Philadelphia. Or 2 years later, I guess. And I was in his office. One of the other, presidents was there from one of the other networks, and they were sitting. And I went to leave. I had to go up to get something signed, and I was leaving. And he looked up at me, and he said, Suzanne, I want you to know something. And I said, what? He said, I love you,
Oh, my gosh.
And I said, oh, man, I got to hear this again. Because I looked at the other president, and I thought he's got, and the other guy was like, what the hell? Like, because this was an older man, too, thinking, Mr. Nathan just said that.
Has he just gone nuts?
Yeah. And so I looked around, and I said, Mr. Nathan, could you please repeat that? And he said, and he put his head down, okay, I just want you to know I love you, And I said, I love you too.
Oh my God, I love that story.
So the impact of me not buying into this whole make wrong thing at the time and not following everyone's advice of you've got to sue or you've got to manipulate or you've got to do something. It's like I said, okay. And now this was not a sexual thing. This was not like what's going on today. Obviously, that's different. That's when you're getting into, more criminal kind of stuff going on. This was more about people just being very scared of each other, just human.
Yeah, right.
And yes, it was abusive sort of thing, but I realized when I talked to him about it, and we had an adult conversation, so to speak, he was as scared of me as I was of him at the time. So it's like I worked it out. I was able to say, no, I'm not going to go in that direction. I'm going to find a way. And me doing that and finding that way impacted not just his life, but the lives of the 170 people in that building.
Yeah, exactly. Everything changed.
Everything changed.
That's
the whole
such a beautiful
changed.
Way to look at it. And this is actually a great segue to your next story that I would love for you to tell.
Okay.
Because it involves Harvey Weinstein.
Go Yes, but that was in a very good way back then.
In a very good way.
Back then. That was a different time.
Totally a different time.
Yes.
So this is Suzanne's first film she ever produced. Right?
Right.
And you had a major problem with the funding, right?
Yeah.
The funding kept falling through.
Yeah.
So within a period of how long, with a year or something?
Even less. I mean, Kate and I started working on it I guess we worked on it for about a year and a half. So it was a passion project of ours. And it was the year 2000. No, I'm sorry. Around the end of 2000 when the whole thing started falling apart.
Right.
The actors and the writers' unions, 2 unions here in America, decided to do a simultaneous strike together that coming June. That would have been June of 2001.
Right.
Now, the strike never happened in real life, but it happened for all of us as producers in real life.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Because in anticipation of it, they were like
had the
not
world
funding things, right?
And the world started to kind of shut down. In terms of production and so on, and fundraising especially.
Right.
So we had our $2 million because the budget was $4 million, and then we were going to match the rest with, obviously pre-sales back then. Those were the days of pre-sales.
Distribution and stuff.
Yeah, the pre-sales, and then the bank gap financing that that we all did. So it was all worked out easy peasy. Then the investors came to our partners in the UK and said, you know what, the world's going to sympathize. So they pulled away. And then we got another set of the $2 million. And then the same thing happened again. Anyways, within about a 3 to 4 month period from like, say, November till March or whatever, we lost our funding 5 times.
You lost your funding 5 times.
5 times. And this was now March.
So
and
any normal person would have just given up by then.
Oh, yeah. I mean, kind of, because we were supposed to shoot in May. But by then, the strike had already caused the shutdown, certainly in America, the potential strike, that even our lead, Chris Walken at the time, had taken, I think, a play for the summer Broadway play or whatever. A lot of the actors did. A lot of the American actors, the bigger names actually, had taken other things. So we moved automatically to the fall. So that we were smart about. But I refused. I remember refusing to give up because I have worked too goddamn hard for this. No way is this going to shut me down.
Right.
So I don't know if it was anger or stupidity or whatever combination or just perseverance. Let's call it perseverance. Sounds better.
Yeah.
Probably stupidity. But anyways, so I called Kate, my film partner. She lives in Delaware at the time, and she was my film partner at the time on this project. And I said, I'm calling every president at every studio I know. And if I can get a name on, because that's what my partners in the UK said. This was on a Thursday. And they said that this last group of investors said if we could actually get a distributor on board, like a big name, like a Miramax at the time, then they would come back on because then they would have the faith to know that it's not going to
follow through.
The project, and it wouldn't last into the fall and things like that. So I said, not a problem. I told him, not a problem. We'll have something by Monday morning. I got 48 hours business time, man. You're going to have it. And so I called everybody, and Kate called some too. We kind of split it up. I think there was about 16 phone calls, and we split them up. And I'd call and I say, I'd like to speak to Harvey Weinstein. And the girl's going, I don't think so.
She's like, is he expecting your call?
And I'm going, no. Well, does he know you? Does he know what this is? No. But I remember he helped out a movie not long ago called English Patient, and he went in and kind of helped them out financially. And we need help, and we just lost our funding, and I need help.
And she's like, lady, did she say, like, I think you're crazy?
She did. She actually said, I'm sorry, but I have to interrupt you now. She said, because I think you might be crazy. She did. I said, sweetheart, you'd be crazy too if you just lost your funding 5 times, $2 million each time. And she went, what? You just lost 2? And I said, yeah, 5 times. And because we started to kind of play with the whole thing and have some fun, and I kind of started to enroll her into my plate. But it's like, no, this movie's happening.
Right.
It's happening with somebody. The train has left the goddamn station. You know what I mean? Either you're on board, sweetheart, or somebody is, right? Yeah. And I said, I just need a contract by Monday morning. She said, this is Thursday afternoon. Are you crazy?
Yeah.
So then I call Sony and anyways, all the different companies. The end story is on that Monday morning, I had 3 deal memos on my desk.
Oh my God.
We sent them to the UK. See? We got the funding back, and we went with Harvey, of course, who was a big fan.
And he did give a deal.
Yeah, because at the time the secretary said, well, he's on his way to the airport. He's going to London. I said, my sales agent's in London. I said, she can meet him at the plane in the morning. I know that plane. That gets in at 9:30.
My God.
She's going, yeah. And I said, well, could you get him, before he she said, okay. But she was getting into it. She was like, oh yeah, he's going to get this script. He's going to read this on the plane. And yeah, and they met him, at the, or my sales agent met him at the airport, and the rest was history. And
the rest is history.
Yeah.
And then the film was made.
Yeah. And then,
Unstoppable. That's where you got the acronym Unstoppable. The label.
The label, exactly.
Unstoppable Suzanne Lyons.
Yeah. And of course, the budget went up a little bit, and we had such great people. It was so fun because I had already put on a lot of the cast, but then of course, it continued to snowball, and it ended up with Chris Walken, who we had for like a year and a half, and Brenda Blethyn, our lead, of course, Alfred Molina. Who else? Naomi Watts. Lee Evans, my favorite comedian. That was the most difficult, to get him. But I mean, it was just, I'm missing other stars, but it's all like A-list. And it was an indie, low budget
So what was
movie.
the name of the film?
Undertaking Betty in America.
Right. Undertaking Betty, yes.
It's very, 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 very cute.
Sounds very fun. I still need to see this.
Yeah, no, it was good. And I mean, and Harvey was a big fan. He even came to the audience testings. And I mean, he was, he was a big supporter of the film.
So a good story about Harvey.
At that point. And because that was when he was doing his job and he loved it.
Doing his thing.
He was committed to it. And we made the movie. And then, of course, 9/11 happened. And a week, and everybody stopped. The whole world shut down. Yeah. And I called, and Chris said, "I'm on a plane. I'm going." Chris Walken, and Naomi was scared, and I was with her on the phone for a few hours on the way to the airport, and she did it, and we all got there. I think we were the only move. There was one other person on the whole British Airways plane with me. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And I remember thinking, how cool is this? The table read is on my birthday. It was October 7th when we did the table read, and we started shooting the next day.
Wow. It's magical.
Yeah, in the UK, in this little town of Wales.
This is only the tip of the iceberg with Suzanne Lyons, but I have to have her come back and tell some of the other stories about the things that she has written a book called indie film producing. Right. And we'll put this in the show notes. Okay. She also, for a period of time, was a career coach and started a film school that focused on marketing yourself in the industry. It was called Flash Forward. She's no longer doing that, but she's thinking of maybe bringing it back. And I said, but next year. But if she even mentioned it, and it's already sold out. So too bad, folks. I am like begging for a place in that. Anyway, so Suzanne, let's go to a little bit about you personally. Not that this wasn't all about you, but how do you stay of sound mind and body in your own life?
Oh, okay, got it. I'm very committed to that. And my husband, who is overprotective, let's say we've been together since school, since college, long time, he is always watching out as well, making sure that my vitamins are plant-based and, just very, very, very committed to all of that. Especially when, as I was getting older, he was very concerned because he wanted to make sure that we stayed very healthy given my past.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we started doing raw vegan about 12 or 13 years ago, and we did it about 100% for about 3 or 4 years. Mm-hmm. Raw vegan. And then we started doing about 80-20.
Right.
And we're probably about 80-20 or 75-25. On the weekend, we'll go and maybe have an Eggs Benedict or whatever. We're not like crazy, kind of about it.
And sometimes you have some fish or something like that.
Yeah, and Fran, we just did a month, in Nice for Christmas, and we did, and I had some beautiful fish. Obviously, they just caught it right there, practically outside, beside your table. So, but he won't do the fish or meat or anything. But I mean, we have some fun with it all.
So when you when you're in production, you are on a liquid-only diet?
When I'm in production, especially if it's a tough production, like if you're doing nights and things like that, I'll do, because right now we'll use pretty much raw vegan till 6, and then we'll do like a cooked vegan dinner or whatever. Okay. Not every night. Like tonight I'm having green soup, which is raw, it's not cooked. But when I'm shooting, then I'll do raw vegan 100% of the time.
Really?
And usually raw vegan, like liquid. So it's like my green soup, my green smoothies, things like that. So
because that gives you the most energy.
Oh my God. Oh yeah. No, I can't even imagine when I see people, eating at lunchtime, even though we always have very good, caterers and stuff on the set, very important. I would be so tired after eating what I see people eat. There's just no way I could do it. So I just feel so much energy. We've been doing this, like I said, almost 13 years, and it just made such a difference in every aspect of my life. My eyeglasses went from 3.5 to 2.5 within 1 month of being raw vegan.
Oh, you're kidding.
No, I mean, everything got affected. Every aspect got affected. I've had since I was a child rheumatoid arthritis. I have zero pain.
Wow.
I mean, zero. So it was huge for me. So we still try to stay pretty great, and we make that investment. We have the Vitamix and we have the juicer. We have the real juicer, like the $450 juicer.
I think I need one of those.
Yeah. I mean, there's certain things to me that you've got to make some sort of commitment, especially as you're getting older.
Yes.
It's kind of time to say, okay, what is it that my body needs? And it'll tell you what it needs, trust me. If you just give it that little break, it'll tell you.
Well, I can just say, as having you as a client has been like an education in itself. So let's just wrap up real quickly with, I'm going to ask you my sound, mind, and body questions.
Right.
So what's a favorite sound?
Oh, probably my husband's voice.
Oh, That's so sweet. Okay, so what's a favorite memory? Just a very off the cuff.
Yeah. Honestly, it's so funny because the image came into my mind is my first Christmas home. So when I was 12, when I got back from the hospital, my mom and dad, I don't know how they afforded this, I have no idea, a red electric guitar.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
That sounds
And then
fabulous.
being at home at the cottage too, because we still kept the home,
yeah.
even though our parents are been gone a long, long time.
Yeah.
We still have that, the cottage part of the home that we stay at when we go home.
So that's a favorite place. Is that a favorite place?
Favorite place, yeah. I would say, yeah, very relaxing. It's beautiful every year. My sister and my brother and I, of the 8 of us, 3 of us, we kept the cottage, and we added a huge deck this year, and we put a little dock in and bought some kayaks.
Beautiful.
And every year we kind of add to it and make it really, really wonderful. We just lost my aunt, who was the last of Dad's 11 brothers and sisters.
Oh, wow.
She's almost 96 years old.
Huge family.
And so we're all getting together. 161 cousins at the last reunion 4 years ago.
God.
So this summer we're getting together again. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. No, I worry about the liquor store being
going out of business.
I just thought of that now. Yeah, all of us Irish Catholics. It's like, oh my God. Yeah, there you go.
God, I love it.
The church and the liquor store. That's where we'll be.
I love it. I come from an Irish Catholic family too. I get it. So, okay, final question.
Yes.
What is the most woo-woo thing you've ever done?
Oh my God, I think we all did. A bunch of my sisters and I, it was in Ottawa years ago. It was in my 20s, I think my mid-20s. And it was, we did the past lives.
Oh.
The regression therapy. We all went to the same gal. God, I'm almost thought of her name. Anyways, I can't think of it at the moment. But we all went and did our past lives.
Oh my goodness.
It was so
Were you connected?
Cool.
Were all of you connected in past lives?
No, we didn't. She didn't get into that with us at all. No, we went separately. We made our own appointments, and mine was very cool because you had to give her some information, when you're born and like all kinds of information. I can't remember now. And she went. I mean, she had the whole thing typed up too.
Whoa.
Oh yeah. No, the minute I opened the door, she started saying, "Yes, I knew that you would have this or that," or "Yes."
Were you happy with your past life?
Some of them, yeah. Some was great. Some of them were great. It was supposedly my first time as a woman.
Oh, this is?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, no wonder you're so productive. You're like, wait to these guys. Why shouldn't I be here?
Exactly. I'm kicking ass. I was one of you at some point, right? Yeah, sure. Maybe it was 100 years ago, but damn it, I was. Yeah.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Suzanne, you are just a joy. You are a joy, and I love that you are in my life. Thank you so much for coming by and being on my podcast.
Thank you. I love having you in my life. Thank you.
Well, that's it for this episode. So what kind of story do you have where you were unstoppable? Have you ever been unstoppable? Do you look at life as fun as Suzanne Lyons does? Let us know your story. I just love her outlook on life. Send us an email or a voice memo at podcast@soundmindbodypodcast.com. And thanks for listening. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And if you like the podcast, give us a review on iTunes. It really helps new listeners find us. Thank you to our producer, Tim Edwards, and the Inbound Podcasting Network. And thank you to our guest, Suzanne Lyons. Get in touch. I'm on Instagram at ShiShiMelody, on Twitter at SheilaMelody1, or find us on Facebook. Search for Sound Mind Body Podcast. I'm Sheila Melody. Join us next week as we explore, enlighten, and evolve.